Nicola Sturgeon, Scotland's first Minister of Mayhem. Welcome to Mark and Pete. Here's a thought.
Sturgeon, a fish out of water. If you're a small fish swimming in a big pond, you've the scope to scale with ambitions beyond. But if you're a big fish splashing in a small pool, you'll make too many waves and just look like a fool. Well, indeed, now Nicola Sturgeon has announced that she's due to resign as Scotland's first minister. Some people will say, hurrah, and others will say, I the new, and other things. But the fact of the matter is that in her head and in her heart, it was the right time to step down. Well, as far as she's concerned, the resignation really comes at a time of intense political pressure. Clergyman Pete, many people will say that, unfortunately, many of her policies have not worked. I ask you, did it ever go right?
Well, I think the problem with the leadership of Nicola Sturgeon has been there from the beginning, an over concentration, too much of a focus on independence for Scotland at all costs. Now, I understand that the SNP is a Scottish nationalist, as in independence party, so that's what you get. I believe they're called the Scottish National Party, not nationalists, but they are nationalist in their ideology. But just the focusing on that against anything else, what I think it betrayed was a lack of actual care for the people of Scotland. Right from the beginning. It was always like that. It just became more apparent as time went on.
Yes, I think what's also important to note is that Sturgeon had been in the role for approximately 8 years as the leader. Now, politically, of course, she has represented Scotland for many, many years in different forms. But the point here is, under her tenure as a leader, Scotland is actually in a worse situation. Economically, the idea of being independent, by many analysts, would say this would be an utter disaster because the economy, they could never be self-sufficient. The other side of it is a big concern, which is around social care. Scotland, unfortunately, has one of the highest drug rates of crime and people who are addicted to drugs. That in itself is a big concern. When you think about where Scotland is in relation to the Union, I think it's interesting that it has distracted, I think, many people within the SNP, as well as other people in Scotland, about where Scotland actually fits. So even if you were to take the independent view about what Scotland is really meant to be, it's never really clear to me if that Scotland ever did become independent. What did it really represent? What was its vision? And to me, it's all very well just trying to break you away from the United Kingdom. But that was never really, there was no real political strategy behind it, no economic strategy, no social strategy. It seemed like it was a personal whim. The other side, I think, that we do need to cover, which I think has really compounded this in recent times, is the idea that Nicola was basically championing the idea for change, where certain people of a certain age could change their identity. And I want to ask you, Clergyman Pete, because this touches upon so many things, and it does, in fact, touch upon belief and religion, etc., about what's right and wrong. What's your thoughts on the fact that she championed the idea of having 16-year-olds trying to be able to change their sex?
Well, I think that this was the revealing of her true character. That is to say that she had no integrity. It doesn't make sense to do that. To be able to change your gender or change your sex at such a young age is wrong. People are still going through puberty at that age. You don't as a girl with physical to maturity till you're about 20. To a man, it's not actually 25, and mentally, both genders, you would say, well, really not fully developed at 25. It's absolutely wrong. It makes no sense medically. Yeah. And you got herself caught up in semantics when she was asked questions about it, because Nicola Sturgeon had not even done the basic research into what she was advocating for. This showed that she was just purely a political animal, just in it to have the position of being First Minister. Her emptiness, the emptiness of any aims or vision, as you were mentioning earlier, Mark, for Scotland, was just demonstrated. So I think she was wrong, but I think it's what it highlighted to everyone that was important, that she just wasn't fit to be leader.
Yes, well, here's an interesting one. And this also sort of shows some of the political gains and losses as well. But if we take former First Minister and SNP leader Alex Salmond, yes, another fishy character, folks. He now leads the Alba Party, and he said he felt for Miss Sturgeon personally, but that there was no obvious successor, and this is the key, no clear strategy for independence. Again, it comes back to what is the plan, what was the policies, what was the direction? And so that leaves a legacy, and it leaves a big hole. Who is best to take over? There isn't anybody that seems to be a strong runner for this. So where does that leave Scotland?
I mean, the problem is where this leaves Scotland is without direction, because what we're likely to see now is, well, the Scottish National Party having lost its leader, and really already, but this emphasises it, lost its mandate for certainly for trying to take Scotland out of Britain and into the EU. The most likely recipient of the votes from the Scottish National Party is the Labour Party. Yeah. And the Labour Party, I haven't seen or articulated a vision for Scotland. So they are in name unionist, the Labour Party, but they don't have the same emphasis on it as the Conservative Party, at least in terms of its public statements has. So what I see is lack of direction, and this will mean that we will continue, unless something remarkable happens, continue with the poor standards in education, in local government, in implementation of housing policy. All these different things are going to continue. You might think, well, it's a good thing that Nicola Sturgeon has gone, but Nicola Sturgeon has gone and left a vacuum.
Quite.
Which it seems remarkable, that we would regret her leaving, but there was no plan for what happened after she left.
Well, I think that's the real challenge here, because according to SNP rules, that what should happen is that she will remain, ironically, as leader until an actual successor is found. Now, that successor, that candidate or candidates, must have at least 100 nominations from party members from at least 20 local branches. So there's a journey to go yet, folks. So she hasn't gone yet. The vote can be run by postal ballot on a one-person, one-vote basis. So that timetable is still to be agreed. But here's my question is, what do the Scottish people think? Do they think that this is now a time to just reevaluate, focus on being part of the United Kingdom, or maybe they do have a different view, and maybe they've got a particular candidate in mind? Wouldn't we love to hear from them?
Yeah. The way to do that, the way to leave a comment is simply go to markandpete.com. Make sure you're subscribed, and you can leave a comment on this and every episode. But that's it for Mark and myself for this time. Catch you next time.